Welcome to the Post for All Season Sports Show. I'm sports editor Drew Rubenstein, and with me today is publisher Dave Raese. And Dave covered the Mountaineers and local sports for a number of years. And Dave, we're less than a week away from the WVU football team's season opener, and it'll mark the beginning of year 3 for the Dana Holgorsen regime. And kind of looking at past WVU coaches and just kind of across college football as a whole, year 3 seems to kind of be a benchmark year where coaches either kind of make or break their careers. Is that a fair assessment?
Well, I think it's definitely a pivotal year in the coaches, because I think they're losing the talent that the previous regimes had. Sometimes coaches have inherited good talent, and sometimes they have inherited teams that didn't have as much talent. And I think Coach Holgorsen probably inherited some pretty good talent, obviously with last year's NFL draft. So he's going to have to be replacing some very good players that were left over from the previous regime, which will be difficult to do. Now this will be about his third or really second full year of recruiting to get his own kind of players in. So that'll just start to happen. So he's sort of blending a little old, little new right now. And I'm sure he would tell you, and most any coaches in his positions, like they're probably saying 3 is not enough. Coach Rich Rodriguez, our former coach at Michigan, only went 3 years at Michigan, and of course each year their record improved until last year they did have a winning record, but it wasn't good enough. But even in his book that he wrote, someone wrote about his tenure at Michigan, it was called 3 and Out.
Right.
Sort of like that. So I think that the coaches probably would at least get like 5 or 6 years in to get a good solid recruiting classes under their belt and have all their players and coaches in, and then they give a better idea of where the program is.
It seems like fans, though, kind of, and supporters and boosters, a lot of the bigger supporters and boosters kind of form their opinions. It seems like almost after 3 years, you look at Bill Stewart, the former WVU coach, and I think even going back and looking at Don Nealon and Frank Signetti, kind of their place, their standing was established after 3 years, and there's a lot to kind of building that support. And for Holgorsen entering this year, it seems like interesting what you think the perception is right now, and what a successful season could do to that, and what a bad season could do to that, because it seems like a lot of people are impressed by what he's done to the offense and the points that he's putting up on the board and the offensive yards that he's been able to accumulate with Geno Smith and Tavon Austin and Stedman Bailey. But I think this is a year where we'll really find out how is Dana Holgorsen the CEO.
Yeah, it's true. I think that again, like you say, is more and more is becoming his program, not Bill Stewart's. I think the big advantage Dana Holgorsen has is probably twofold. One is the contract he has, which pays him up to $6 million if we decide we don't want him anymore.
Right.
So that's an incentive to keep him around too. And two, I think that his athletic director, the guy who hired him, is here still, and that's a big to do. Rich Rodriguez, when he went to Michigan, when he was fired, it was by a different athletic director that brought him in. I think I was trying to think whether Frank Signetti, the athletic director that hired him, was gone. Leland Bird, Dick Martin replaced him. So when you have that support behind you, I think you're going to get a few more years. And so fans, tend to look at 3 years, 4 years. In fact, fans will look at first years. Bill Stewart was sort of, a lot of people were unhappy with his, selection in the first place. And, sometimes the team did stumble, but they still had some winning records. And maybe the Big East was not as a bad team or bad conference as a lot of teams thought, as Louisville has proven to point, and Syracuse to us last year. So, I think, history is always easy to look back on, but I think, I bet, Coach Holgorsen, unless he goes to another job, another position, and does real well here like this year, and then snaps up another, available job that he thinks is a promotion, I think he'll be here for at least 6 years or so. And I think that'll be a fair assessment of whether or not, the transition to the Big 12 is another thing that
right.
Given him some
There's
time.
been a lot of stuff.
So.
Do you think? So it sounds like right now you believe Dana Holgorsen kind of has united the fan base, or at least has a large portion of it believing that he has this program headed in the right direction?
Well, the fan base is always united until they lose. So I think, last year, of course, there was a 5-0 start, and, I was even thinking like this team was unbelievable, and then it, went the other way. So I think fans will be a little more, will laid back. I think they'll be, I don't think they'll be expecting the offensive last year, but they may be expecting a little bit better defense. And I think that, a record like last year probably would be okay.
And I would think that would probably, when you look at it being in the Big 12, that's probably a fair assessment. And Dave, we appreciate you joining us this week on this edition. And please continue to check thedpost.com for the latest sports videos.